First, I will start with this sample. This sample, as you can see, is the back of the anterior chest wall. This is the Zaphod process of the sternum, while this is the sternum. And I will turn these to the back. As you can see here, these are straps of muscles extending from the back of the sternum to the costal cartilage. And so these straps forming a muscle which is called sternocostalis that contain two parts on that side and that side. And as you know from your lecture, sternocostalis is one part of transversus thoracis. Also in this sample, I'm pointing to this piece of blue colored structure. It is the first costal cartilage that articulates with the manubarium of the sternum. Above it, this is the clavicle. But this is the first costal cartilage, this is the second costal cartilage, third costal cartilage, and so on. Here, I'm pointing in the mid-axillary line to a muscle in the intercostal space laterally. So this is the innermost intercostal muscle, part of transversus thoracis. All these pointers will remain on the sample, and the samples will be transmitted to the lab. You have to see them, and then we will have a quiz on them. If we have a section into the sample, you can see this is pectoralis major, pointed by the pointer, while this is serratus anterior. Both of these, serratus anterior and pectoralis major, are extrinsic muscles of thoracic cage, and you can see them from that side also. This is serratus anterior, and that is pectoralis major. From the front of this sample, I'm pointing to a muscle from outside. But supposingly this muscle may be external intercostal muscle, but if you look to the fibers are going downward, backward, and laterally. So these are internal intercostal muscle. But this is not external intercostal. External is removed in this sample. Similarly, I have another sample which is real sample. And you have to suggest the point structures here. For example, this is the sternum, and this is the strap of muscles that extend from back of the sternum to the costal cartilage, representing sternocostalis on both sides. And here I'm pointing to a muscle in between the ribs from inside anteriorly on the side of the sternum. Here it must be internal intercostal muscle. It should not be innermost, because the innermost stops here laterally. This is the internal intercostal muscle. If I'm pointing here deep to the pleura, of course here the pleura is not removed, but if I remove the pleura and I'm pointing deep to the pleura, here this is the innermost intercostal muscle. But because I'm pointing anteriorly on the side of the sternum, this is internal intercostal muscle, of course covered by endothoracic fascia. On the sides of the sternum, I may see the shadow of internal thoracic vessel on that side and that side. These are the internal thoracic vessels, artery and vein. Similarly, on the lateral aspect, I will remove the skin, and deep to the skin are muscle fibers which are extrinsic muscles, most likely serratus anterior. But in between the ribs, I'm pointing to the external oblique muscle from outside, deep to serratus anterior. This is another sample. Plastic, plastic. The plastic sample. Again, we will pass to the plastic model. You can see on that sample the following. You can see on that sample the following. First, you might see straps of muscle on the sides of the vertebra. One of them, this is another. These are subcostalis muscles. And due to that, laterally here, is the innermost intercostal muscle. But here, the yellow mark denoted the intercostal nerves. And if I'm not pointing to the yellow intercostal nerve, I will point aside of it. This is the posterior intercostal membrane, or called internal intercostal membrane. This is the hemiazygous system of vein, while this is the azygous vein. Again, this is a pointer to the posterior intercostal membrane. And again, here I'm pointing to the innermost intercostal muscle, pectoralis major, and in between them serratus anterior. The pointer here try to orient you to the bone bundle. I'm separating the bone bundle deep to the, these are the bone bundles. You have to look to it closely. And if I'm pointing to the bone bundle, you cannot say this is an artery or vein or nerve. It is bone bundle. But if I'll retract the bone bundle and pointing deep to it, it must be the posterior intercostal membrane or internal intercostal membrane. And here, you may look to the external intercostal and internal intercostal muscles, but you have to look to it so closely. This is a pointer on muscle fiber directed downward, backward, and laterally. So this must be internal intercostal muscle. While this is the muscle fiber that is directed forward, medially and downward. This is external intercostal muscle, and this is the external intercostal membrane anterior to the muscle. This is the aponeurosis of external oblique, and deep to it, this is the pectoralis major fibers, while this is the muscle of the abdomen, which is called the rectus abdominis muscle. Both of these, pectoralis major, external oblique, and rectus abdominis are extrinsic muscles of the thoracic cage. So these are the samples that are required from you. As you can see, it is very difficult to make all of you see see the structures on the camera. The structures will be in the lab, and we will be with you, me and Dr. Abdullah, and we will try to revise the structure with you, but try to look for it. بعد نص ساعة سأكون